So thank you all for coming out to this Three Chopt Chat. I always have to take my time with that one. I know it's a lot out of people's day, and the weather is not conducive to being out and about. So thank you all for making your way, especially those who may have come from a distance, because this is a meeting that was not limited to just Three Chopt residents. For this particular chat, I did extend the invitation countywide, because I think the discussion that we are going to hopefully have today is something that is relevant throughout the county. I am Misty Roundtree. I am the Three Chopt Supervisor representing that portion of Henrico County. I have several guests with me that I'm going to introduce in just a second. But I wanted to give a little bit of an explanation as to why I wanted to have a discussion about transparency, why I selected that to be the topic of discussion for today. In this role, I do a lot of community meetings and interact with a lot of folks in various capacities. And one thing that I think comes up a lot is that every now and then someone would make a comment about, and it could be a meeting about pedestrian safety, or it could be a meeting about, roundabouts or schools or safety or what have you, but somebody might make a comment about, well, we don't know what government is doing, or you guys are hiding the ball, or we're not sure, and it troubles me that folks might have an impression that there is some secrecy or some wall of information that folks don't have access to. As a reminder, I was only elected in November of 23, and so prior to that, I was on the other side of kind of the wall, and I can honestly say that there were lots of times that I did feel a little unsettled and feeling like I didn't necessarily know what was going on behind doors that I was not privy to, and it is unsettling. And I don't ever want my constituents or anybody living in Henrico County to feel that way, because Lord knows we have enough on our plates and enough to worry about. And so it has kind of been my goal for a while now that if we can, make Henrico County the safe little area that folks can live in, where we've got confidence in government, and we recognize we're not always going to agree, but at least we will be transparent and open and honest with each other. And if we do something that you don't agree with, you'll at least know why, and you'll be a part of the discussion. So transparency and accountability are not just buzzwords for me, that it's something that has permeated my discussion with my colleagues since getting elected, and something that I want us all to be accountable to. I know that there are probably several of you here that love transparency, want to talk about it, but are also more here to talk about data centers. And I say that because of the mail-in or emailed-in questions that we got. Most of them were about data centers. And so I'm open to talking about that, but I will say that I've asked these wonderful folks here to be here to talk about transparency, and they've taken their time to be here and have prepared for it. So if we can talk about transparency first, I think data centers honestly may be interwoven into that discussion a little bit, because I think folks have concerns about whether we are being transparent about data centers, right? So it is a kind of a segue into that, but I just ask that we allow folks to talk about the topic of transparency, and then we are going to have a Q&A session after presentations are given. So that being said, thank you for indulging me in that introduction. I would like to introduce the folks that we have seated up here. So we have from Public Relations our Director, Ben Shepard. Wave. We have from our County Attorney's Office, Audrey Burgess. Okay. We have our Freedom of Information Act FOIA Officer, Stephen Robinson. Public Works Director, County Engineer, Terrell Hughes. We have our Chief of Staff and Deputy County Manager, Carrie Trattina, and of course myself. So each of these folks up here have their own spiel that they're going to give, and then what I would ask, just so that we have a complete picture, is that we hold questions for after everybody has given their part of the presentation, and then it'll be wide open melee of questions, if you will. So thank you so much, and I believe that we're going to start with Mr. Shepard.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Hi, everybody. I'm Ben Shepard, the Public Relations Director here for Henrico County. I think it's important for me to be here to share with you all what we do and a little bit about how we do it. I'll try to roll through here to not take up too much time. So we serve the county general government as a full-service communications agency, really. We receive direction from the county manager, from the board of supervisors. We treat each department as a customer and help them out with all their publicity needs. And so how do we do that? Let's see. We have social media. I was named director 7 years ago, and we really started leaning into social media at that point. These are our general government social media accounts. I just want to make you all aware of them. Those numbers are fairly recent, that last day or two. Some of them are newer. As you can see, the Blue Sky and the Threads are newer ventures for us, so they're still a little bit lower on the follower side. But I wanted you all to see that so that you know where we send out information. One thing that's important to note, that if we have something that we're going to send out, we're going to hit all of these platforms. We don't pick and choose. The look of it may be different based on the platform and how it should reach people, but the information is all going to be on all of these. We also work very closely with the local media. Everyone you see on this slide receives all of our news releases. They all follow us on social media. We answer news media requests daily from the majority of these folks. So we work very closely with them, and it's also not uncommon for them to use video, photos, or things from our website as well, just because they know that we know what we're doing and they like our content, and we work really hard to make sure that we present professional content so that things can be shared throughout. And like I said, we respond to them daily. With different requests. Sorry, this thing's not reaching. These are some of the other agencies that we work with. Each of these other agencies maintain their own social media. So our public safety folks, police, fire, sheriff, emergency management, 911, they're all under our umbrella in PR. However, they do have their own audience. Our friends with Rec and Parks and the public library, they also maintain their own social media, have their own contacts. So whenever we need to get something out, and we try to cast as wide of a net as we can, we enlist the help of our friends. Also, public school system here is obviously a big one for us. When we need to reach folks in schools, they have obviously email address to everyone who's got children in schools in the county. A recent example, we created a video to explain the difference between what constitutes an electric bike versus a electric motorcycle, because a lot of children have these motorcycles now. A lot of parents don't realize that once they reach over 35 miles per hour or whatever, they're actually classified as an electric motorcycle. So if you have kids in the school system, you will be seeing that video in the next week or so, because we just asked them recently to share that as well. So that's just a good example of how we all work together when we have to get things out. And here's a handful of other things that we have a hand in. We do live stream and archive the Board of Supervisors meetings and the Board of Supervisors Town Hall meetings. As you can see, my folks over here working away to make sure everybody can see this and it's archived. We recently started archiving. We stream the Planning Commissions and Board of Zoning Appeals meetings. And we do have a news page, henrico.gov/news, where you can find all of our stories. You'll find our videos, a collection of podcasts, and that's also a place you can sign up for our newsletters. Our department is responsible for the county's annual report, which we actually sent this year to the printer yesterday. We do print a handful of those every year. We used to depend on newspapers to distribute it, but now obviously it's online, and I encourage you in the next couple of weeks to check it out online. It's interactive. You can click through and see the different videos and things of what we've done throughout the year. And the mobile app is another way that we can reach you. If you download the county's mobile app, you'll have an option to select push notifications. So we send those out. We send our newsletter out through the mobile app. We send notifications about board meetings. We let people know. So it's just one more way that we can reach people. I'm going to come back to that one. I want to talk about part of transparency, as I see it, is also accessibility, because it's great to get all the information out there, right? But how accessible is it? And that's what I want to introduce Beth San Martin in our division here, who is our accessibility expert, is what I call her. And we have some changes coming up, and I just wanted her to share with you all the recent changes with accessibility. Beth, thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Beth. I am a public relations specialist. I work with Ben, whether he likes it or not. I am a certified professional in accessibility core competencies. I earned that over the summer when we started really cracking down and getting to know all of the things that we need to do in order to be compliant with this new final ruling for the Americans with Disabilities Act. Under that act, there was a new final ruling that we have to have all of our web content, all of our web pages, all of our information accessible to the max degree, basically. So while we've always kind of wanted to do that, we're really cracking down and getting into the technicalities of it. In order to be compliant, we must be compliant by April 2026. So we're working really hard on that. It is all part of the Americans with Disabilities Act. This used to only apply to federal agencies. Now recently it's coming down, and all state and all local governments must also comply with it. So basically this means we're going through our entire website. If you've ever been on our website, you know how many pages there are. It is a lot to go through, but we are going through it to make sure that a screen reader is able to read all of those web pages. We're looking for all the high color contrast, and that's going to be on all of our graphics on social media, all of our flyers, everything like that. We're working on getting everyone up to speed on that. The WCAG 2.1, which is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, that's what we have to follow. And they really focus heavily on the vision impairments, hearing impairments, and cognitive impairments, because obviously physical impairments don't really come into play when you're talking about web. So we now have an accessibility committee. I'm a member of that, and we're currently working on getting all of the departments, getting them put together, making sure that they have what they need in order to train their employees who create content or have web editor access. And we were literally just talking to all of the department heads this morning. So it's very high on everyone's mind. Our overall goal is really just best practice, which goes beyond just compliance with what the federal law is. And that's what we talk about in those committee meetings every time we meet, that this is not just about we have to meet this bench line. We're like, how can we make sure that we are actually inclusive and accessible beyond just what's required? So I'll be around at the end as well. So if you have any questions about anything that we're doing there, I'm happy to talk to anybody about what we're doing for that.
Thanks, Beth. Barb, could you go back one? I'd like to leave you all with, because there are a lot of ways we reach out and we try to let people know what's going on, but this obviously is our contact info. This QR code, and it's also on the board on the back, will take you to a survey that we have that will allow you to share with us what social media platforms you like, how you like to receive information. There's a comment section there, and then on the board in the back there's also a QR code that will take you to our news page, so you can check that out. Again, there's our contact info. I will stick around and answer any questions, obviously, after we're all done here, but I just wanted to give a brief overview. Thank you all for your time. Let me see. I'll introduce Stephen Robinson, our FOIA officer. He's up next. So.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Like Ben just said, my name is Stephen Robinson, and I'm the FOIA officer for the county. For those who don't know, the Freedom of Information Act is essentially a resource for you all to use to see what we're doing. Through it, you can just come to me. You'll send me an email, give me a call, whatever. You can basically request to see records. And so if you applied for a permit for your house to get a new storage unit or something, you can apply, or you can send me a message. I'll go ahead and get that for you. If you're curious about a new road project that's happening, you can send me an email. I'll see what documents we have, and I'll provide them to you. And so that's essentially what the Freedom of Information Act is. As I mentioned, there's a bunch of ways to get in touch with me. And the nice thing about FOIA is that you don't ever have to say that you're submitting a FOIA request. You can just give me a call, and if you've asked for a record, it's something that I have to provide. Under state code, I have, generally speaking, 5 days to provide you a response, and I'd like to say that I'm pretty timely. There are, of course, some instances in which more time is required, and that's usually just if there's a lot of records that I need to go through. Another thing that I'd like to mention about FOIA is that there are certain exemptions, and so Generally speaking, if you're asking for a record concerning public business, it's something that we're going to have to provide you. But there are certain things, social security numbers, for example, confidential business records, things like that, that the public isn't necessarily allowed to see. And so my job really is to compile all of the records being requested and then to review them for any possible exemptions. And so this is just a screenshot really from our Freedom of Information Act site through henrico.gov. On it, you get a basic rundown like I just told you, and then as well you get some information about your rights under FOIA. So like I said, you have the right to receive records. One thing that some people get confused on is they'll come to me and they have a lot of questions for me, and I try my best to be as helpful as possible, but I don't work in the planning department, for example, and so if you have really technical questions, that's not something I'm going to be able to answer for you, but what I can do is point you in the right direction and get you in touch with someone who can answer those questions, and so I try my best to do that. And so here's just some contact information. The best way to submit a FOIA request, in my opinion, is through email. Henrico Way at henrico.gov is the official FOIA inbox, so you can send it there and I'll see it, and if I'm on vacation or something, someone else will see it and ensure that it's getting to the right people so that we can provide you a timely response. Phone number as well, that's good. I try to be responsive there, but I'm always running around, so it's a little less easy. One other thing I'd like to mention is that you don't actually have to come to me. It's my preference, as it helps me keep on top of things, but technically you can submit a FOIA request to anybody in the county. Again, I just encourage you to send an email to Henrico Way, as that helps everybody make sure that we're all aware of a FOIA request, and if it needs to go to multiple departments, for example, it puts me in a position where I can collect every document and ensure that it gets out to you. Also on our website is information about the Freedom of Information Advisory Council. They issue opinions about FOIA, and so if you ever have a question about specific sections of the Virginia Code talking about it, they're a great resource, and they have lots of opinions, training manuals, and just general information about FOIA if you're curious. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is that Henrico County gets a lot of requests every year. I answer most of them, I'd say, but then our police division, they have their own team, actually, of FOIA personnel, just because of the sheer volume that they get. And so if you ever get in a car accident and need to see some records there or have an encounter with the police division, you can send your email to HPD FOIA requests at henrico.gov or just call someone in the police division and they'll be responding to your request. Another thing worth mentioning is that our school system, Henrico County Public Schools, is a separate legal entity, and so if you ever have a FOIA request for them, something relating to your child or another student, that's not something that I can help you with because I don't have access to their records. They have their own FOIA team, and so you can get in touch with them by emailing hcpsfoia at henrico.k12.va.us. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Audrey Burgess. I am a deputy county attorney with the county attorney's office. And our job is to represent and advise the county through its governing board and its agencies, which, of course, it's a big county and you all provide a lot of different services. And so our team is organized into practice groups, and those practice groups serve as points of contact for those various agencies. Because there's such a wide variety of things that the county does, and those fall under a wide variety of different kinds of law. And so those practice groups kind of allow us to be available to advise people by subject matter. One thing I do like to mention when people ask about the county attorney's office is that we're not the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, and we do get that question sometimes. The Commonwealth Attorney, of course, prosecutes crimes and interprets the criminal code. We are civil attorneys, so we provide advice as civil lawyers to the various agencies and points of contact for the county. We can't provide legal advice or interpretation to citizens, but we are really honored to work with the agencies and service providers who work with all of you to provide the support that they need to provide those services. So I really appreciate that you're all here tonight and giving us an opportunity to say hello.
All right. Good evening, everybody. So, once again, I'm Terrell Hughes. I'm the Director of Public Works for Henrico County. So, I'm going to give a quick presentation, just, I guess, talking about some of the things that we have coming up around the county, mostly in the Three Chopt District from a transportation standpoint. Once we get it pulled up. All right, there we go. All right, so like I said, I guess in the spirit of transparency, one of the big challenges we've been dealing with, and I've been here since 2020, and we've actually seen a huge uptick in pedestrian safety issues around the county, especially since 2020, which 2020 was really surprising, where we had less traffic on the road, but we actually saw an uptick in pedestrian fatalities, and unfortunately that trend has continued for the last few years. I think to the latest number to date, we've actually lost 11 people here in Henrico County just this year, which is about what we lost last year for the full calendar year. And a couple years ago, we lost as many as 14 people. So pedestrian safety is a big issue that we're actively trying to tackle here around the county. And we're not running away from it. The county was developed largely as a suburban locality, but we have a lot more people who walk, who use walking as a form of transportation or recreation, and we're actively working to make the network safer. So we've got a number of things. I'll mention a lot of the projects that we have coming on, but a big part of what we're trying to do is education and outreach. So this WOA campaign, Watch Out Ahead Henrico, it's a campaign that really a countywide initiative, especially working with police, public works, a number of different agencies where we're handing out these vests. We know that's not necessarily the be-all, end-all solution, but really we're trying to promote awareness of pedestrians. If you're driving, we do have people who walk in the community. They're a little bit harder to see in the evening. And if you're a pedestrian, if you're not wearing something reflective, people can't see you. So it doesn't matter whether you're wearing light clothes, dark clothes. If it's not reflective, it's really difficult to see. So just really trying to promote awareness from a pedestrian standpoint, in addition to some of the infrastructure projects that we're doing. But yeah, just wanted to mention that. One of the big initiatives, so when we look at our data with pedestrian fatalities, almost 9 out of 10 of those pedestrian fatalities happen at nighttime. So we do have a lot of dark roads, dark intersections, and as part of that, our Board of Supervisors is now allocating $1.5 million a year for priority pedestrian lighting. So we're working as a team to identify some of those key dark locations that we have pedestrian crashes that occur, and we're working actively. A lot of those roads we have to work with the state, which is the Virginia Department of Transportation, towards getting lighting installed, and we're looking at solar LED lighting. That's going to be our primary path forward. We actually just got an order of about 50 LED solar lights in. We've installed a few pilot locations, and we're hoping to expand that effort over the next couple of years. But that's in response directly to the data that we're seeing. A lot of the folks that we're losing are at night. Believe it or not, most of the pedestrian crashes do occur in the daytime, but they're a lot more severe at night. Largely probably because the drivers can't see the pedestrians until it's too late. So just if you're wondering, we do have a lot of projects underway. These projects, in spirit of transparency, they do take a while. There's a lot of factors in order to deliver these projects. We have to buy land. In some cases, we have to redo drainage. We may have to have utilities get relocated. So these projects can take some time, but there is a huge investment in sidewalk around the county. We currently have about 288 miles of sidewalk and 56 miles of shared use path. If I were to compare that to the total number of miles in the county, we have about 1,400 miles of county road and another few hundred VDOT roads. So if you're doing the math, most of the roads don't have sidewalks. So we're fighting an uphill battle, but we're working as fast as we can. We have 74 active pedestrian projects with an investment of over $570 million, which is a huge chunk of our transportation portfolio. Total transportation projects are over 100 and over $900 million in projects. So a huge chunk of our project portfolio is dedicated towards addressing pedestrian safety and bike safety, which will get us about 20 miles of additional sidewalk, 16 miles of shared use trail. One of the other big programs that we've recently revamped has been our traffic calming program. So this has largely led to an expansion of what you've probably seen as speed bumps around the county. And this is a direct response to some of the pedestrian safety challenges that we've had. We've noticed a lot more walkers are also sharing the road. And knowing that we can't build sidewalk everywhere all the time, a good way of addressing safety on some of our neighborhood streets, which are 25 miles an hour, is installing speed bumps. So we've done a number of before-after studies, and these are one of the most effective tools at slowing traffic down on some of our residential streets, making it safer for people who walk or bike. So we have made some changes to the program. The program used to be pretty burdensome. A neighbor would have to make a request, and then they would have to get us to evaluate the road. If it qualified, that person who made the request would then have to get a certain number of signatures from other residents to say, yeah, we agree. And that was a really tough task, especially if there was a speeding problem. And then we had to get a board action. We had to go to the Board of Supervisors and get a $200 speeding fine sign. And then if that wasn't working, we could get another request a year later. And then they have to get signatures again if it's still qualified, and then we would finally install speed bumps. So we've made the program a lot more streamlined where, if we get a request in from a resident, we'll evaluate the street from a safety standpoint. We look at a number of factors: pedestrian activity on the street, the width of the road, as well as speeding. And then we also look at a measure called what I'll call excessive speeding. So if that is something that's occurring, that can qualify a street for the program. So this is a question we get when we install speed bumps. Some residents are still remember the old program where we needed to, a certain number of signatures, but the current program identifies safety challenges, and our overall aim is safety. So if we're identifying unsafe conditions, this gives us the ability to quickly install. So we're doing, and it's a substantial investment. We're roughly spending, upwards of $1 million a year just installing speed bumps to try to make a lot of our neighborhood streets safer. And like I said, the program has been pretty effective overall. But if you have a street, and you're wondering why it's not on there, feel free to make a request. So that's essentially how our program works right now. If we get a request in from someone on the street in the neighborhood, we will evaluate from a safety standpoint. One other thing I will mention, you'd be astonished at how fast of speeds we measure on some of our 25-mile-an-hour streets. We've measured speeds of upwards almost 70 miles an hour on some of these roads. So you'd be astonished, and that's a very unsafe condition. And those are some of the things that we hope to address when we do the after studies. Once we put the bumps in, it pretty much makes it physically impossible to drive those vehicles at those speeds. So we don't see those speeds anymore. So in full transparency, that's why we install the speed bumps, is we're really trying to make our roads safer. Get to the next slide. All right. So if you want to know what's going on, and we've got a lot of projects in Public Works, as well as our Public Utilities Department, with water and sewer projects. And if you really want to know what's going on, I can thank Beth and our PR team, she's somewhere, but with putting together this newsletter. It comes out once a month, and we have 5 different newsletters, so one for each district. Feel free to sign up for all 5, and it pretty much is targeted towards what's going on in your district, what's going on in your area. And this is something we didn't have a few years ago. We recognize it can be a challenge sometimes to keep up with everything that we have going on, especially with how many projects that we have. So I'd encourage you to sign up for this and get some updates. All right, so I'm just going to quickly click through some completed projects. So here's our Twin Hickory Roundabout, Hickory Bend. So this is a location that had some crashes over the last few years, and you've probably seen roundabouts pop up a little bit more. So since 2020, we've installed about 16 of these, and just from a data standpoint, they do two things very effectively. They slow people down, so we've actually seen slower speeds on these roads around the roundabouts, and to date, we have not had a single injury crash at a roundabout. So a lot of these locations had some pretty severe crashes, and in some cases, fatal crashes. But since installing the roundabouts, not saying crashes don't happen, but they're a lot lower speed. And we've also got one that we just installed, Shady Grove at Old Knuckles, similar project. So a couple other projects just to mention. So around the district, we've installed 2 gates. So these are some roads that where the county built John Rolfe Parkway. I think there were some unintended consequences. So we've worked with a couple of the communities towards, relieving some of the cut-through traffic that has occurred. These are situations where I think the intent is for traffic to be on the new roads that we built, and that doesn't always happen. People, traffic's like water. It kind of finds the path of least resistance, and especially with Google GPS, it does a lot of routing. Sorry, this is clicked through, but yeah, I just want to thank everybody for your patience. This was largely a VDOT project, but a lot of you probably lived through the bridges over 64 that were replaced. Those are now done. We also have a number of projects under construction. So if you live in the Sadler Road area, thank you for your patience. So we're currently in a closure. If you want to head towards Broad Street, that closure is probably going to be another month. And then we're probably going to have another closure which is going to make it a little bit more difficult to get up towards Knuckles. So just wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of that. But that project is progressing very well. Pedestrian hybrid beacons. So this is something that has been another challenge. So we have a number of 4-lane roads, especially roads with 35 and 45 mile an hour speed limits. So we've tried things like putting crosswalks in. We've put the flashing crosswalks and we're not seeing the best stop for pedestrian compliance. So a lot of people don't know, but if the speed limit is 35 miles an hour or lower, the state law actually requires the car to stop for the pedestrian in the crosswalk. A lot of people don't know that. We get a lot of emails from residents that are frustrated that cars do not stop. And we've noticed this is a big problem on a lot of our 4-lane roads. So at a number of locations around the county, we are actually installing a pedestrian hybrid beacon, which I'll just quickly explain. It's a signal a traffic signal that remains blank until a person pushes a button. And this will help people cross the street. So we actually have projects at Twin Hickory Library going in, one at Mills Godwin High School. We've got one over at Douglas Freeman High School, another one on Three Chopt Road over near Tucko Middle School, Ridge Elementary, and a few others coming in around the county. And this is really an effort to make crossing safer. A lot of our focus right now is around schools where we have children, especially high school and middle school children that tend to walk more independently home. So we want to make sure that those areas are safe. So a couple other things coming soon. So we've got some signal improvements at Knuckles at Wyndham. So these are to improve ADA, that's Americans with Disabilities Act. So we've got a number of intersections that don't meet current accessibility standards with crosswalks. So there'll be a number of these projects around the county where we're improving accessibility and the pedestrian accommodations at a number of traffic signals. This is Leesfield Farm Drive Extension. So this is a new road. So this is actually the road that's going to lead to, if you voted on the bond referendum, for an animal shelter that's coming in. So this is kind of the first leg of a road that's coming in off of North Gayton that'll be able to access that. Three Chopt Road, I know a lot of you are probably wondering what's going on with that project. Like I said, just being honest, this project has taken a long time. So the right-of-way process for that project took, 6 years. We're currently in a very long utility relocation phase for the project. It started 2 years ago, and there's a number of overhead utilities that we're currently working through to try to get relocated. we've caught a little bit of misfortune with some of the storms over the last couple of years, like Helene last year, and that's put a delay on some of those utility relocations. So we're just as frustrated as you in terms of just how long this project is taking to get delivered. But, hopefully we can get the utilities relocated, and we're really working towards a construction start date next year on the Three Chopt Road project. So thank you for your patience with that one. The intersection of Knuckles at Sadler Place, this is a project that, will hopefully come in shortly after the Sadler Road project, but to make some improvements to that intersection, which frequently backs up with Innsbrook. Parham Road, we have a number of sidewalk projects. So if you're familiar with the Tucker High School area, it's an area where we have a lot of high school students that walk around along Parham Road. So this project is one that's been in process for a couple of years, where we're working to get delivery. It's currently in right-of-way phase, where we're buying land rights for the sidewalk project, and hopefully we'll have that project under construction soon. Shady Grove, so if you're familiar with that area, just south of Old Knuckles, there's a little S-curve that we have a lot of cars frequently run off the road there. So we're working to fix that curve, straighten it out a little bit, and address some of those, and that should go to construction next year. Oops. Lauderdale, we've got a sidewalk project that we're currently working on. It's 30% design. This is kind of around the Park Terrace area to connect two pieces of missing sidewalk. Malin Drive, so this is a project that we'll hopefully have more information coming on soon, but we're looking to repave that road. The pavement is not in the best shape, but when we repave it, we're looking to basically not stripe it exactly the same way. It currently has a 4-lane configuration with no dedicated turn lanes, and and I guess in our studies around the country, that's actually one of the most dangerous configurations of a road you could have. So simply by reducing the lanes from 4 to 3 with a dedicated left turn lane, we're able to do two things. We're able to get bike lanes, and by separating the left turns by having a dedicated left turn lane, you actually see crashes drop by about half. So we've seen some good results with some similar projects that we've done. Church Road is a good example where we've taken that road from 4 lanes to 3. We've seen tremendous results from a reduction in crashes standpoint, and we're hoping to do the same on Malin. West Broad Street, so this is really our most dangerous corridor from a pedestrian standpoint. We've lost the most people on Broad Street compared to just any other corridor. We do have sidewalk projects, so we're currently administering these projects now. So we got federal and state funding to do sidewalk on about 90% of Broad Street. Previously, VDOT was actually delivering this project, but in hopes to have the project delivered faster, the county is now, we've taken this project on because we understand the urgency in getting that project delivered. Parham at 64. I'm not going to spend too much time, but that interchange, if you've ever driven through that, it gets pretty backed up. The state, we did get funding for that one, and the state is going to deliver an interchange improvement. We also have some improvements coming on Broad Street and Short Pump, which from a car standpoint, the Short Pump corridor is actually our most dangerous corridor in terms of just number of crashes. So there's a couple of improvements coming soon that will improve traffic flow there, as well as Dominion and Cox in the Innsbrook area. And then I guess a big one in the Three Chopt area is the North Gate and interchange. So we're currently working through that project, which we're actually in an environmental study, and we're really close to getting approval on the environmental study, which will then allow us to then start the design phase of that interchange project. And it's projected to dramatically reduce traffic around the Short Pump area by giving another way for people to access that northwest corner of Henrico County. And then also the GRTC Pulse extension. So it currently terminates at Willow Lawn. GRTC is currently working on a project, and we're partnering with them with some of our sidewalk projects to expand Pulse further west. So we'll give people more options to get around Henrico or even downtown. And with that, so I'll give it to Carrie. All right.
Right.
Well, I'm mindful that we're 45 minutes into this town hall, so I'll be really brief. Once again, I'm Carrie Trittina. I'm the Chief of Staff for Henrico County. Just a brief history. I remember back in 2014 when the county had no social media pages, and unfortunately that our account was tied to my personal one because at the time I was in the manager's office, and that was the goal of the board of the manager's office, is to promote more information. And to my dismay, I think there's probably some really unfortunate videos on YouTube about when we did our first live streamed town hall, and I used my laptop in a computer video. So that was back in 2016. So we've come a long way in terms of getting information out, and we're in an evolution now where the manager's office and the board of supervisors are trying to also make sure that we're receiving as much information from the public as we are putting out. Really, the FOIA officer is there to help get information that we don't have publicly available. We really try to get a lot out, and there's been a lot of key topics that haven't been covered yet, such as financial or public safety data, and we try our best to put as much of that information out on the web. So really, Stephen and the FOIA officer is there for what's not there, or is very particular to your specific need. Where we are in the evolution, from my perspective, being with the county for about 12 years, is that we're in a posture of trying to figure out ways to collaborate more and to engage with the community. Right before COVID 2019, the manager's office redesigned one of our deputy county manager positions, and its whole purpose, and her name is Monica Callahan-Smith, is to be external facing. Her title is Deputy County Manager for Community Affairs, and to really be out in the community, listen and bring back that feedback and see how we can better alter our services or provide new pathways for our residents or customers, what have you. And then from that is a new agency, and we have one representative here today, Victoria Davis, from our Office of Engagement. And so we're just ever trying to find different ways to reach you and to receive your feedback on our services. The Board of Supervisors has amended the zoning code 2 or 3 times in the past year or so to create additional public hearing processes for certain land use categories so that we have more opportunities to hear from you. We've added a couple extra months onto our comprehensive planning processes to have more additional engagement opportunities for the public to give us your thoughts on what the county should look like in the next 5, 10, 15 years. So I'll just end my comments at that, is that we're here to listen and to receive your feedback and to continue to change to best meet the needs of where our residents are at and what they need from their local government. So thank you for being here.
Okay, well, that was a whirlwind of information, and it may seem a little disjointed, but it really is all interrelated. And I want to start by with PR, and someone asked why we have a decent section of our budget, or a decent amount of our budget goes to PR. PR is not a vanity section of our government, right? It's not about making fancy videos or to make us look good, or to the contrary. Usually I take great issue with how I look in most of the stuff that comes out, but it really is public relations, right? And so it needs a significant portion of the budget because it touches upon everything that we do in the county and how to convey whatever pocket of the government is. How do we get that information to you? And so I just wanted to kind of clear that up. It's not like, PR is not our marketing agency. There's this, I think, misconception that it's not doing real substantive work to get information out to you guys. That really is the entire mission of it, and they work very hard at it. So anything that, whether it's how many, how do I get postcards out to let you guys know about these meetings? How does the planning commission, how do we determine which houses get information about public works projects or zoning projects or things like that? It really touches upon everything. With the FOIA and COIA being conflict of interest, Freedom of Information Act being FOIA, and the attorney's office, I think it is important to note what was just said by Ms. Trentino, which is that's kind of the backstop, right? The goal is that we have a lot of information out there that you don't need to file a FOIA request for, but in the event that there is a question, and maybe it's already out there, you just don't know how to access it, there's an entire department of folks that are there to answer those questions. We have very strict rules, and I don't know if folks commonly know it. I certainly didn't know it before getting elected, about the interactions that my colleagues and I can have on the board regarding communication. And sometimes it's a little frustrating because if you think about in your own workplaces, the things you do to build a relationship with each other, and it requires conversations and spending times. And we're so heavily regulated because of sunshine laws, right? And the need to make sure that people know we're not having these, collusive conversations with each other about matters that affect you all. So there are a lot of restrictions that govern that. And sometimes people want to know about the communications that we have. The Public Works Department, so I say this probably every meeting that I have Mr. Hughes at. It blows my mind that he is able to do this for all of the county. As much as he knows about the specific projects to Three Chopt, he knows about every project that they're doing all over the county. And I hope that snippet really does show you that there is so much work that most people don't realize is happening all of the time. Some of them very large, like the gate and interchange, and some of it's, small, a roundabout in a particular neighborhood. Mr. Hughes, everything that you discussed, is that information available online somewhere? Right, so that's kind of my point, right? You don't have to come to a meeting like this to get these updates because that information is available online, but we recognize that maybe folks don't know how to access it or know that it's out there. And so part of the goal of these conversations is to hear from you. And if you guys are saying, Misty, I have tried to find out information about this and here's what I've run into on the website or what have you, that's the kind of feedback that we want to know so that we can make it more user-friendly for you. And then, I asked Ms. Trentino to be here because I do think it is relevant to understand that this is an evolution, and I really like that you used that word. There are going to be things that, we haven't thought of when it comes to transparency and getting information out. There might be things that have been thought of before, but the previous board didn't have an appetite for it. There may be things that are suggested that even the current board, we think about and we're like, oh, that doesn't quite make sense, but we want to have this dialogue and we want to open this conversation for you all. So I hope that this has thus far been informative and that you've been formulating questions in your mind, because we really do want to answer them as relates to transparency. That being said, again, I promise you, we will have some time for data center questions. Does anybody, we want to open it up for questions that are transparency related or related to what you all have heard thus far. And I assume somebody's going to come around with a mic. There we go.
Quick question for Terrell. You mentioned about the speed bumps. We had a conversation with our supervisor years ago about putting them in our neighborhood, and we were told that they interfered with street cleaning and snow removal. Is that still the case?
Testing. No. So just quick thing with our speed bump design, they're specifically designed. We understand a lot of these streets are used for parking. The roads need to drain, and then we also understand that emergency vehicles also need to traverse over the speed bump. So yeah, we can connect after the meeting, and I guess get information on that street. But yeah, that's usually not a reason why we wouldn't install speed bumps on a road.
Hello, my name is Elaine. I am in 5th grade at Shady Grove Elementary. First, I want to say thank you to Ms. Roundtree for the stop signs that were added in front of our school. They help, and I'm glad something was finally done. But I also want to be honest, they didn't solve the whole problem. Kids who live farther away are allowed to walk or bike, but kids like me who live right across the school are not. That does not feel fair. To me, it isn't just about crossing the road. It's about fairness and listening. Kids notice when rules are unfair, and kids notice when people aren't being heard, and kids remember. When I turn on the news, I see how divided America feels right now. I think division doesn't just appear when we grow up. It starts small in schools when children see that some are included and some are left out. So my hope is simple. Please make decisions with transparency, with fairness, and with all students in mind. Because if children can learn fairness here at school, maybe we can grow up to build a country which feels fair too. Before I finish, I want to share something personal. When I lived in Philadelphia, I always felt safe walking to school. At every crossing, there were volunteers helping kids and families. In every school zone, there were police officers watching to make sure cars followed the rules. Here in Henrico, I know there aren't many police officers, but now I'm not just talking about for myself. I'm also talking for my little brother, who will start school next year. I'm really worried about him. If the school keeps saying the intersection is dangerous, but can't fix it, and the police say they don't have enough people, then what are kids like us supposed to do? Just wait around for something to be done? My family even suggested a safe road to school program, like other places already have. Nobody has answered, and that's what scares me the most. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is now you're getting to be a pro at speaking to us, and I love that. So there should be a crossing guard that is now in place. Okay. So I had this discussion with the county manager and also with police because while we can't have crossing guards at all schools, at all intersections, I do think, and I expressed my position, that is one location where it is important to have one. And so my understanding from the county manager was that we were going to get a crossing guard there. So if that has not yet happened, let me follow up on that. And I think that will help address the schools. Now, my understanding is the school, and recognizing that the school and general government are two separate entities, and the school has its own rules and requirements, and for safety reasons, they did not want students crossing over from one side of the street. My hope is that with a crossing guard there, that safety concern will be alleviated such that the school says, okay, now we can do that. So there is kind of that interaction that has to happen. We do something that we hope makes schools take a different position, because it's not our policy to begin with that says that you can't walk to school from where you live. It's that school's policy. Okay. So I will definitely follow up with you guys on that. Thank you.
Yes. I'm glad that you guys said that we're here to listen, because I have a few points. So if you guys would just bear with me. Yes, thank you. It's a bit hypocritical when the Board of Supervisors censors the public and refuses to be transparent, while at the same time asking the public to be transparent by publicly providing their name and address when they speak at a Board of Supervisor meeting, likely violating the Data Collection and Dissemination Act. How about the Board of Supervisors publicly provide their address? The board won't. Why not? Because we all know that folks can get shot in the neck when they say things that other people don't like. Just look at what happened to Charlie Kirk. Charlie was assassinated for saying things that other people disagreed with. So when the Board of Supervisors asked the public to publicly provide their addresses, not only does it likely violate the Data Collection and Dissemination Act, but it also likely constitutes as reckless disregard, meaning an extreme and careless disregard for potential risks of harm or injury, and demonstrating a conscious and indifference to the consequences of their actions. During public meetings, this board desires the public put their life and safety on the line by giving out their address for the public record, but at the same time refusing to put written public handouts, public comments, and petitions on the record. Another point. It's not transparent when the board lies to the public by claiming that VDH or the DPU director are forcing the county to have a well-known neurotoxin be added to the drinking water that harms the brains of babies, when it's actually the Henrico Board of Supervisors who is intentionally harming the public. The truth is that it is the board who is responsible for the neurotoxins in the drinking water. And instead of publicly taking responsibility for your actions, you publicly laugh about harming children's brains and try to make VDH and Bentley Chan the scapegoat. How about you be transparent and take responsibility for your actions? These very actions that you are taking by demanding and dictating that neurotoxins be put into the public drinking water appear to constitute gross negligence and civil rights violations, as well as a violation of 18.2-54.1, attempts to poison, and crimes under statute 42 USC 300I-1, tampering with public water systems. Where is the transparency regarding these alleged crimes that you are all committing? It is not transparent when the county's YouTube page has the comment section turned off.
And so I was handed, this is 4 pages, which I see that you're reading from, and you're 1.5 pages down. And my concern is that if you read all of this, this is going to take up a large amount of time. And I know that you come to board meetings and you make comments, and in particular have talked about the water before. I'm not trying to cut you off in a meeting about
transparency. If you would give me some leniency, I will speak faster. It'll take me about a minute more if you would give me some grace.
Okay, please don't feel like you have to read this verbatim. We have a copy of it, and
in all due respect, I would have been finished had you not interrupted. Do you mind?
Especially Ms. Ramsey, just please be mindful of everybody else that's here.
Of course. I think this is important. These topics are regarding transparency. It's not transparent when you deliberately mute the microphone, thereby censoring people's original questions at public meetings. Mr. Rogish has had several Tuckahoe talks where the public who is watching cannot hear the original questions being asked because you have gone out of your way to censor their questions. When you pervert a citizens' questions, not only is it rude, but it is also not transparent. It is not transparent when you decide not to post meetings such as this one to the county's YouTube page and force citizens to do a FOIA request for the footage, such as in the case of the January 16, 2025 1 p.m. meeting. Henrico residents pay a lot of money to have meetings recorded. The least you can do is post them to the county's YouTube page. It is not transparent when I am prevented from asking a question at one of Misty Roundtree's meetings via WebEx. I was the only citizen that was prevented from asking a question. It is not transparent when I was censored from speaking during the public comment period via WebEx during a regular Board of Supervisor meeting. The moderator told me that the county had already received my public comment via email, so she, the moderator, was not going to allow me to speak. This is undemocratic, unconstitutional, and a clear civil rights violation, and my written comment was never included for the record. It is not transparent when the county censors written public comments, public comment handouts, and petitions from the record. I have had numerous written public comments censored, as well as public comment handouts. These are public meetings, and public comments are legally required to be included in the record. It goes without saying that if the public cannot see or hear the public comments, they are not public. When you censor one's comments from the record, You are creating a situation whereby an individual is forced to make a FOIA request and pay a costly fee for something that should already be free. This is what is known as a racket. When you censor citizens' comments from the record, the public has no idea that they even exist. The only way to learn of a citizen's written public comment handouts or petitions is to do a FOIA request once a year for all of the materials that have been furnished to the county. Again, this is what is known as a racket, and this is not transparent. Henrico is violating both the United States Constitution and the Code of Virginia 2.2-3707 when Henrico censors citizens' verbal public comments, written public comments, handouts, petitions, and any other material that may have been submitted for the purpose of being part of a record for a regular Board of Supervisor meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Question, because I know you briefly talked about GRTC expansion. Can you just, I really couldn't tell on the map, where actually will it be expanding to?
Yeah. Sorry for not being 100% clear, but no. So currently the Pulse ends at Willow Lawn, and the extension is going to run up to Parham. So that's essentially the extent of the Pulse expansion.
Oh.
Yeah. So Willow Lawn to Parham on Broad. Yep. Broad and Parham. Yep. Yep.
Hello. I have a question about the Three Chopt extension. I know it's taken years. My hope is that it will be finished before I die. Can you give me an idea what the time frame is at this point as far as completion? And will it include sidewalks or bike lanes?
Yeah. Okay. No. So the Three Chopt project, we're in utility relocation phase. So we're currently, waiting on Verizon, Comcast to relocate. We're hoping to be able to begin construction next year. So that's when we're hoping to bid the project out. And then we're looking at a roughly 2-year time frame. And the project essentially is going to be a 4-lane road with a divided median for turn lanes. And then there's going to be sidewalk on both sides of the road.
Hi. I was a couple minutes late, so I'm really sorry if this was answered before I got here. But I do wonder if there is a plan to make the afternoon special Board of Supervisors meetings available online or in a recording of a video.
The afternoon Board of Supervisors meetings, are you talking about our work sessions? Yeah. Okay. So at present, there is not a plan, and I want to clear up about these work sessions because I know that there is misleading information that has been posted about them. And I don't know if anybody in this room has been to our work session. So essentially, there is the twice per month Tuesday meetings that we have in the boardroom, and that is for the matters that we vote on and public comments and things like that. Prior to that, we have work sessions, and they are held on the 3rd floor. They are open to the public, and we often have things like we might be honoring employees, fire department members, firefighters who have put out a blaze or done some training. Recently, we had a young lady who did a mural in one of our county buildings, and we recognized her there. We have our public agency partners that will come and give us information. So if we've funded a program, they'll come and say, here are the things that we're doing with it. Sometimes we'll have closed meetings for legal advice from our county attorney about a matter that might be before us. So recently we had one, and it was related to vape shop regulations, and those are closed meetings because they're attorney-client privileged communications. The allegation or the comment has been made that we are secretly discussing matters and making decisions before we actually have a public vote downstairs. And if anybody has been there, and when I tell you, the room is usually full of people that observe these meetings. To get to them, because again, this was something else that was said that was not accurate, and I actually did a video one day that I intended to post and didn't, to show how easy it is to get to these meetings. You go up to the receptionist on the first floor, you say, I'd like to attend the work session. She'll slide you up to the elevator, you walk out, and it's about a 2-second walk around the elevators to get into the special session. So it's not hard to get to at all. For one, and thank you, Penny, for bringing this issue up today, but it's not something that had been an issue that had been brought up before, right? So if something is not brought to our attention as an issue, then it just isn't an issue, because we're dealing with all of these other things. And when we have these meetings together, it is a unique opportunity for us to have a relatively informal gathering where we can discuss things that are important to inform us as we go forward. We're not talking about the agenda. We're not saying, hey, Mr. Nelson, how do you want us to vote on this case? We're not saying anything that is related really to the agenda, other than if it's somebody from the county saying, hey, you guys are going to see this budget amendment, and somebody from that relevant department is giving that information to us as a group in a setting. So I know that one individual prior to you, Ms. Page, has raised the question as to whether we're going to broadcast or stream these meetings. It had not been an issue before. I can tell you that our Board of Supervisors meetings, we tend to have maybe 7-8 people on average, unfortunately, that actually tune in to watch those meetings. We have less people on an average board meeting attending our board meetings than are in this room tonight. So this idea that there is a public that is clamoring to hear what we're saying in these work sessions and that we're hiding it from them is honestly just, it's a red herring. It's not an issue. So that would be my answer to you there, Ms. Page. There are a lot of things that I think are really important for us to address in the interest of transparency. And if it were a broader issue where folks really felt like there were things happening that are being secretive or anything like that, but it's just really frustrating to be constantly accused of wrongdoing for motivations that in my mind are not well-founded. So I'm not accusing that of you. I know that has been raised by somebody prior to you, and perhaps that's why you're asking, because you know it has been raised. But thank you for the question. Yes, Ms. Fishy.
Thank you. It appears that Roseshire will be developed in one part of Henrico County.
Yes.
There is a concern, where else are these lobbyists and gambling companies wanting to establish in Henrico County?
So I'm going to, Mr. Tina, do you want to address that?
Absolutely. Thank you for your question. And we are also very disappointed. Just to recap and to build off one of the comments I made, the Board of Supervisors has added an additional step in any future process that involves gaming, where it requires a provisional use permit. So it's just an additional touch point to allow the public to comment on the character, the possible negative impacts or positive impacts that case had. So moving forward, any type of gaming facility will need to go through that process, which is a good thing. Unfortunately, that developer and Churchill Downs, they skirted that process. They knew what that timeline was going to look like, and they tried to beat it, and they did from a permitting perspective. Luckily, Churchill Downs is capped at the number of gaming facilities that are currently allowed in the county. I believe that number is 175. Churchill Downs
cannot build anything else unless they get approval from the Board of Supervisors. And we have not seen that request come forward. We don't know if that's something that they want. So there are a lot of protections that we have today to prevent the expansion of it and to prevent other entities coming in that want to do gaming. And there's no other gaming company that we are aware of that is allowed to operate those machines like they are at Roshire and Henrico County. I hope that answers your question.
Affordable housing is a problem in our county as well as throughout our country. We have become a model, but we also have controversy with zoning. What is being developed, planned, or projected for more affordable housing in Henrico County?
So, as you all probably know, those of you that are from Three Chopt, we do not yet have a development that has come in under our Affordable Housing Trust Fund in Three Chopt because it is challenging. This is the most expensive district in Henrico County. The cost of dirt is more expensive here. And so because the projects that are able to avail themselves of that trust fund are guided by folks, our income limits. And so it's just the unfortunate reality that in order to qualify for some of that, for a house that would fit under that program, Three Chopt is really challenging to make that work. I have not given up hope on that. I am optimistic that we are going to be able to make that happen. Affordable, I say that in air quotes because what is considered affordable now is really not by most people's definitions. So we use the word attainable, or we try to, pretty it up a little to just really, but we own the fact that it is egregiously expensive to be a homeowner in this country now, especially if you're a first-time homeowner and you don't have the ability to pull equity out from a former house. So we are trying to answer your question, Ms. Fishy, we are trying to expand the way that we're able to use that affordable housing fund. The other things are challenging because there's so much opposition to a lot of what is probably a solution to it, right? Changing zoning to allow smaller homes, smaller lot sizes, more density. And density is a word that people really get fired up about when I have meetings. And it's hard to talk about affordable housing without talking about having housing that is more dense. And people, are fine with the concept in a lot of regards, but don't want it anywhere near them. So it is something that is at the forefront of our conversations a lot. But I have to be transparent that a lot of my frustration is that when ideas are discussed, people don't want it near them. And I think that we've got to figure out a way as a society and a county to kind of get over that and realize that perhaps notions in our mind of who needs affordable housing or attainable housing isn't, folks that are receiving government benefits or anything like that. It truly and honestly is our police officers, our firefighters, our teachers, our nurses that need that. And I hope that once we kind of, get over that hump, then folks will be more open. And I won't go to community meetings where we're talking about a development and people are objecting and wanting to know, well, how is this going to affect the value of my home and the dollar per square footage. So a lot of competing interests there, but it's something that we're really determined and focused on trying to address bit by bit. And even in Three Chopt, it is definitely a goal of mine. And I am in any conversation that I have, and this is something else I think that is related to transparency. Developers don't run Henrico County. I think if you actually have a conversation with developers that dealt with Henrico County, 3, 4, 5 years ago, they would probably tell you that it's a different day and that developments are not being rubber stamped. You guys have probably seen some developments that didn't happen that maybe would have a few years ago. And it's because, I certainly know when I am talking, if somebody approaches me about a developer approaches me about a development idea, I ask this question. what besides adding inventory to the county for housing, besides adding inventory, because any development adds inventory, besides adding inventory, what does this development add to Henrico County? Is it an affordability factor? Is it some type of infrastructure improvement that is going to come to the county with it? Is it something environmentally additive or a sustainability component? What is it that this project adds? And that's what I am looking for any development that comes before me now. So when we do have meetings or conversations with developers ahead of them filing with planning, that's what it's really about. So thank you for your question, Ms. Fishy. Yes.
Follow up to that. Dirt is expensive, there's no doubt about it. But one thing that is really contributing to the issue is real estate taxes and property taxes. And I'm just wondering, the board has complete autonomy over what the real estate tax rate is. Are you willing to propose a reduction in the real estate tax rate to help people afford to stay in the homes that they have and allow homes to become more affordable?
So and Carrie, can you speak to the history of the tax rate?
Absolutely. And lucky for all of us, our Director of Finance, Sheila Miner, is in the audience. So any specific questions she can stay after and answer. But we have reduced the real estate tax by several pennies since 2022. Pennies matter, though. So just to put it into relative terms, when we reduce by a penny, last year that equated $6 million of revenue that we were not going to receive. So when we reduce the tax rate, we have to be very mindful about expenses and what that means for the county's sustainability levels, financial sustainability levels moving forward. So we are constantly evaluating our ability to be able to lessen the tax burden of our residents. We have the lowest residential tax burden of the 10 largest localities in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we're very, very proud of that. That also stems from us not actually taxing or having fees that other governments do, such as stormwater and ambulance fees. So we'll continue to evaluate that. Today, we don't have the county manager would be the one that would recommend his budget in the spring, and so we don't have a recommendation at this time to do that, but that's something that we're constantly evaluating.
I appreciate that, Carrie, but prices are going up by 98%, and the reduced factor rate, but let's get $60 on this side does spend way more than $60 million right? So really, that's a bogus argument. I appreciate the fact that's a bogus argument. Ultimately, it needs to be.
I appreciate your perspective, and we absolutely, when we were seeing things spike up 13, 15, 20%, that's when we initiated the Commonwealth's first tax credit back, and we did that 2 years in a row because that really, truly was overburdening our property owners, and so we wanted to the best of our ability, return some of that back to the taxpayer. But happy to talk to you more about your particular circumstance. We have programs such as REAP and RECAP, which actually freezes your tax, your real estate taxes for a period of time if you qualify, and they're very generous programs. So happy to talk to you more about to see if you could qualify for any of those.
We have gotten, thank you, Carrie, we have gotten some online questions, and I gave a couple to Mr. Hughes, and then I also got a note that says, Ms. Roundtree, please get on with the data center conversation. So I'm going to ask Terrell if you could quickly answer those questions that I've given you.
Yep. All right. So quick, I guess, questions. What are the costs of the animal shelter, Three Chopt Road and the Sadler Road projects, and are the pictures and renderings on your website? So the animal shelter, we're currently estimating that's a $15 to $17 million project. Three Chopt Road, we're currently estimating that is a $53 million project. And then Sadler Road, looks like all in, that'll end up being about a $42 million project. So we're hoping it comes in a little bit under that. But that's the cost. And then as far as our pictures and renderings on the website, yes. So pretty much everything that you saw came from our website. I'm pretty lazy. I basically just went to our project website, pulled an image off of it, and put it on the website. So everything that I shared is publicly available. not to plug Google, but if you go in any search engine and just say Henrico County Public Works Projects, or if you're specifically interested, Henrico County Three Chopt Road, Henrico County Sadler Road, you will find a link that'll take you to that specific page. But yeah, the project page, you'll see there's probably 100 or so projects to kind of scroll through. So I apologize, but we have a lot of projects, so it's really hard to know which ones are there. Other question, what considerations to ADA compliance was considered prior to installing speed bumps? I find I'm unable to traverse them in a wheelchair without going into the middle of the road now. So ADA, that's the Americans with Disabilities Act. So we do pay attention to that. Currently, the in-road ADA doesn't apply to in-road necessarily, but we do take some considerations because we do know there's people with wheelchairs, people with strollers, as well as bike riders and scooters that also ride on the road. So we did take some specific attention to our speed bump design. You'll notice we don't have a constant speed bump. It's kind of spaced out, and that accomplishes a few things. It allows our fire and ambulances to actually straddle our speed bumps, so their response time's not impacted. So I think we're the highest rated ISO you can get from an emergency response. So class 1, yeah. So from a speed control standpoint, we don't want to do anything to impact response times. But the other thing is that gap also allows for bikes, strollers, and wheelchairs to go in. So I understand, I'll have to probably follow up in terms of the specifics, but we usually do have a space between the speed bump and the edge of the road to pass. So I'm happy to look at the specific. I'll probably get the information on who submitted the comment to make sure that our road is accessible. So
Thank you. There was a WebEx question that came in, and I'm trying to understand it. It is essentially about community meetings and having them standardized to ask, to have actual presentations with a Q&A. So I guess I should say community meetings, there's all types of different ones. A lot of the community meetings that we attend are actually not our meetings. They are meetings that a developer conducts with the community when they're preparing or proposing to have a project there. And I attend as the board member because I want to hear the discussion, I want to hear the community's concerns and feedback, and I want to see for myself whether the developer is being responsive to the dialogue at the community meeting. And then we usually have someone from planning there as well. My planning commissioner, Mr. Shippey, is here. He goes to these meetings for Three Chopt as well to observe and then also to answer technical questions or what have you. So if it's not our community meeting, we don't set up the format of it. We're there essentially as observers. If it's a community meeting that we're hosting, there are different formats, and sometimes and they've been here. Sometimes we'll have the boards up and people will go around, and we'll have staff at each board to ask questions. Sometimes it'll be a situation like this, and honestly, I think sometimes it's a matter of preference. For this particular meeting today, the initial discussion was, are we going to have boards around and do it that way? And I actually preferred this so that everybody is hearing the same information at the same time, as opposed to going bit by bit. So I don't know that standardization necessarily applies to the community meetings because they're all different and have different focuses. I will say that I do think that all of our community meetings in some form have it baked in so that questions can be asked, whether it's individually at a particular board or whether it's in a panel like this. But I recognize, here it is 6:54, and we could probably go on, and we just don't have the time to do so. But that's why, reach out to us when we're not having these meetings, and we can answer questions outside of that as well. Or you can say, hey, can we have part 2 of this meeting, and we'll get it set up. I get excited when folks want to be involved, and so I'm happy to do so. Data centers. So, as you all know, let me first say that the reason that as a board we took the step to change the ordinance so that it requires a PUP process was 100% designed to improve community involvement and conversation about that, right? That got lost in translation, I think, along the way, but we took a situation where data centers could be built by right in areas, and we said we don't want that to happen anymore in Henrico County, and we want to create this process where a developer has to come to the board and make their case and present their case, right? And so we saw that happen at the Planning Commission last week, where a project that is currently before the board in Verina, they brought their case to the Planning Commission, and the community came out and spoke their piece, and the developer was there, and the Planning Commission, which I sit on, but I abstain as the board member as a general rule on all cases, but that case was not recommended for approval. It will still go to the Board of Supervisors for a vote on it. But, I heard somebody, take credit, as it were, for giving people their voice in the data center conversation. The voice was built in when we said we are creating this process. And even for that particular case, that developer asked to be grandfathered in, knowing that we were changing the ordinance to remove the by right. And we made a conscious decision not to grandfather anybody in. So it has to be said that through these data center cases that apply in Henrico County, we have, by design, specifically created a process to give you all a voice, to create more transparency, to force essentially a developer to lay out everything and make their case. And if they don't make their case, then they probably will not be successful. But that was to increase accountability and transparency and your voice in it. Now, for a lot of you guys that are here, the situation that we find ourselves in Three Chopt is a little bit different, because we're finding ourselves having to deal with a Goochland project and a Hanover project that, I can give you guys as much voice as possible, but ultimately it's going to be a Goochland board that votes and a Hanover board that votes. Where we are with that, I have actually a meeting set up with Sue Dibble on Hanover board next week. And we're going to talk about it. I briefly spoke with her about it. She said it's very early in the process there. So this is the Hanover project. And they're still receiving information on it. They have not made a decision. They don't know, they're very much still in the evaluation process there. And so my hope in meeting with her next week is to share the concerns that I know that our Henrico County residents have about something being built right there on the border of Hanover. In Henrico. So to be clear and to be candid, nobody is saying that we have the ability to force either Hanover or Goochland to vote a particular way, but we can certainly let them know what our thoughts are, what our feelings are, and if something is going to be built, what types of standards that we would ask them to consider. There are public meetings in each of those counties, just like there are in Henrico, and you are permitted to attend those meetings just like you're permitted to attend in Henrico. And we all know that an elected in another county is only going to give so much weight to somebody that's not going to vote for them. But I do think that the optics of it matters, and just knowing that that is out there matters. I am actually pleased. I've seen a lot of stuff on the Goochland side. I think Goochland residents are making themselves heard, and that's very helpful as well. Mr. Ramsey, just before it leaves my mind, I will note this, because in all candor, that the piece of making public comments where you give your name and address, it did strike me initially when I first heard it as, I don't necessarily think that everybody would be comfortable doing that. I have never, in the year and a half and some change that I've been doing this, seen a person who was not allowed to make a comment if they did not give their address. So I will just say that, and I don't know, I may be speaking out of turn as far as what the law requires, but I know that there are plenty of people that will come up and say, my name is so-and-so, and I live in Brooklyn District, or I live in this district. So I just wanted to...
She support the act, because by essentially that would advocating and not dated about sheets.
Thank you. So that being said, anybody have a question about... Yes. Okay.
Yeah, so the proposal they finalized a good flood.
Oh, okay, thanks. Basically, they're looking at setting up regulations to allow a nuclear reactor to be put at the just south of Kane Road, north of I-64, in order to power the data centers. Now, they're looking at small module nuclear reactors. There are no SMRs in operation in the United States. There was no question and answer interactive in the Goochland meeting, and they completely glossed over this. But
I've done some research, and studies show that SMRs produce 2 to 30 times the radioactive waste of older nuclear designs, waste for which there is no safe long-term disposal site. The Goochland supervisor did state that their plans for nuclear waste disposal are to truck it off-site. However, research shows there are no realistic prospects for licensing centralized sites where the used reactors could be taken for the foreseeable future. Any community with an SMR will have to plan to be a de facto long-term nuclear waste disposal site. This proposal puts many thousands of homes within a 10-mile radius of a nuclear reactor. This would require plans for evacuations, shelter in place, in the event of any incident. The Goochland supervisor stated last Monday that they don't care about any impact to Henrico citizens bordering these areas. They also stated that up to 25 million gallons of water are needed for this area, for these data centers and the SMRs, will come from Henrico County. Impacts don't stop at county lines. Please, be a voice for Henrico citizens. Use whatever leverage is available to negotiate some kind of sanity for this project.
Thank you. I share your frustration, and I think those of us on the Henrico board believe in regionalism and the fact that, especially in this area, we are all so closely aligned that we have to be able to communicate, get along, and yes, we recognize the autonomy of every locality, but it is, very short-sighted to think that we don't have to work together. Some localities think more like that than others, and some are very insular and take the position. And I did not hear that particular quote, and I'm dismayed and chagrined that would be said, because we would never say that. We would never say we don't care about Goochland residents or we don't care about Hanover residents. I think what I know of that project, and admittedly I'm still learning about it, is there is a reality that if the plan is to put the number of data centers or what have you that they want there, that they have an energy problem. And they're, years away from being able to solve that energy problem. My understanding is that they're, where they are right now is just trying to get that designation on it, that by right designation, so that when the time comes, they're able to do so without any obstacles in their way. I respectfully would submit that I have no fear of using my voice about the things that I'm passionate about, including protecting our Henrico residents. And I know that there are a lot of unknowns when it comes to that new technology. So we do intend to chime in, as it were, with the information that we know and we have about the risks and effects of putting things like that close to residential areas. The unknowns that come with nuclear energy right now, and there are some positives about nuclear energy, to be clear as well. But we intend to absolutely have our voices heard in that project, recognizing that the response may very well be they don't care what we say, but we're going to do our best to have our input heard on it. Is there anything any of you wanted to add on that?
We share your concerns from an emergency response perspective. In full transparency, Henrico Fire and Police do respond frequently to our rural neighbors for mutual aid requests, and our hazmat team, hazardous materials team, is the regional response team. So there are a lot of additional follow-up questions that we're going to try to get answered from Goochland, because none of that coordination has happened on the forefront.
And I will say thank you for, I had in my mind that I wanted to mention that the water piece isn't as easy or as straightforward as we would hope, because water is an essential resource. We can't just say, Goochland, we're cutting off your water, and use that as a bargaining tool, because we can't. So we are certainly looking at ways that we can show how emphatic we are about this, but there are lines that we can't cross, and we don't want to endanger people that don't live in Henrico's borders either. And again, the fact that we would have to have Henrico first responders going to respond to something that may happen at a facility there is disconcerting, and hopefully that gets their attention as well.
If I could add just one more thing as well, for both the Hanover and the Goochland cases, outside of the local government actions that are being sought right now, regardless of if they get approved or not, there are other regulatory, or what we say internally, jurisdictional permits that happen. So there will be other points in this process, if these projects do get approved locally, that we will continue to try to voice our opinions in. That does require, particularly for the Hanover one, if they continue with groundwater, there will be DEQ processes, SEC for the power concerns, and other regulatory touch points that we will absolutely try to participate in those public comment processes as well.
Yeah, we've already started talking about ways to have impact in those procedures as well, those processes. Yeah.
Hi, this is my second go around dealing with H.H. Hunt and the potential development of the property behind my house. For the data center specifically, it would be wonderful if the county had basically a strategy within our county, but we also need a regional strategy, because now we're talking about 2 data centers and a nuclear plant within a very close proximity of each other. We need to be working on a group strategy. But as far as the one we're talking about in Goochland, the one we're talking about Hanover, we're talking about an increase in infrastructure. Who's going to pay those infrastructure bills? Like, there's some stuff that has to be done, whether that's getting water, getting stoplights, building roads, traffic. There's a huge impact on the community back there, as well as environmental impacts, house value. I mean, all these people, we need a unified push. I understand Virginia is really high on being the #1 data center provider, but I don't think any of us want to pay for across countries energy costs, the water costs, in a state right now with increased housing costs. So someone needs to be looking at that and taking a really hard look, and also asking these developers to act in good faith, because unfortunately, I know there's several of us who live here. No one was asked about this. On the other side of the county, I get it. It's Hanover's decision ultimately about what they're going to do. But when we have to decide as a county, how much are we going to be on the line to pay for? I mean, I don't want to be paying for them to dig down in the Chickahominy tributary behind my house, take all the water, and then we've got a problem with water clarity, water drinkability, and the cost there. So I think there needs to be a larger regional discussion with all the players, because the constituents are not happy. I mean, you ask anybody and they're all, and I get it, we're going to have some data centers. It's a fact of life. But there needs to be some coordination. Thank you.
And after the timeline.
100%. 100% agree. It's the same thing with water. While we had a regional discussion with water, and I know the state folks are trying to figure this out as well. I was at an event with Senator Van Valkenburg over the weekend, and he was, we were commiserating about how much we need to do to address the data center issue on a state level, and the cost and the infrastructure and the demands on our environment for that as well. So I hear you, and the idea of a regional discussion about it and what that may look like is intriguing to me, and to see who all we could get at the table to do that. It's a little different, because even with the water situation, the state has a role in that as well, but I feel like regionally we had more authority with data center and energy and things like that. It really is so much that is above our head, and it has to be handled by the state. But I think there would be value in having a regional discussion about data centers. So thank you for that suggestion.
Is there currently any kind of rules or regulations in Henrico or at the state where you cannot put a nuclear reactor within a certain distance of schools, of a neighborhood? Obviously not, but anything, any little tidbits that you could give us to help us on our quest to make sure that we're taking care of our children, because that Wyndham is a huge neighborhood, and there is absolutely a difference between the hot side of Lake Anna and the cold side of Lake Anna. And I do not want to, I live within 4 miles of the proposed nuclear site and the data center site. I don't want to hear it. I did not move out to this area to be a part of that situation. And so, but I am also very afraid for our children, like cancer rates going up, but for our children, for adults, for everyone across the country. And I just feel like that's something that we should really take into effect, because that's the next generation that we need to be protecting.
Truthfully, I do not know to any level of degree if there are buffers or distances specifically tied to youth serving areas or zoned areas, so we can do some research on that, certainly as part of our ongoing conversations with both Goochland and Hanover. In Henrico County, what I've noticed between some of these more recent data center projects in different localities is we have, Henrico have much stronger buffer and distance requirements, really from anything residential or other establishments too that aren't industrial by nature. And that I don't see the same in cases. Just as an example, the H.H. Hunt Hanover one, there's a 100-foot buffer, and that buffer is not truly a buffer. It's basically just turf grass between the two golf course holes. Sorry, I don't play golf. But in Henrico, we would treat those buffers much differently, so we can continue to do that, and that's part of what Ms. Roundtree has asked staff to do, is to develop what those standards that they would look like here in Henrico County, and how our neighbors could mirror those to better protect us from some of those impacts that our residents fear.
Yeah. Was there one question? Hello. I have a legal question, so maybe best suited for Ms. Burgess. Can Henrico take legal action against Hanover, Goochland, or the developer over this issue?
I've been advised no from the county manager's office, so I'll just, because we've asked that question before, but I'll pass it to Audrey.
That is a really good question, and it is such a good question that it deserves an answer that is provided by someone who's qualified to give it, and that would not be me. So I want to make sure that you actually have that information accurately. But I would just defer to what Mr. Tina has already said in terms of whatever information has already been shared with leadership about that. I'm sorry?
Who is the ability?
Sure.
Go ahead. So Audrey is filling in for our county attorney. Audrey's practice area is typically human services.
It is, but I also and this is one of those. So when I gave my presentation about what our office does, one of the things that I said is that our office can't directly provide legal advice to citizens, and that's because we have the duty to actually advise the entity of the county as a whole. So we, in terms of that area of expertise, that advice has been given by someone who has that area of expertise, which is not me. But I think that usually the advice that we give is to our client, and that response is given by the client to members of the public who have that information that they're trying to find out. I know that's a weird answer to the question, but like I said, I want to make sure that you have accurate information, which I don't have to give you today.
And I will note, if you notice, it's kind of an interesting dilemma, right? Because on the one hand, we have, let's have regional cooperation. And on the other hand, it's, well, can we sue them, right? So, and I say this as a litigator who, takes people to court all the time. When you go that route, everybody gets defensive and doors shut and you don't have productive conversation. And so I think that we want to be careful about, last thing I would want is, a message coming out after this meeting. Henrico is considering suing Hanover County, over this or something like that, because that would be the last option. Litigation is expensive. It drags out forever. And I would like to think that other elected officials are operating in good faith, notwithstanding perhaps a comment made by a Goochland supervisor. With Hanover, I think it may be situated a little bit differently, and I have a different degree of optimism there that we're going to have some productive conversations, perhaps than with Goochland. But I just wanted to add that aspect when we're talking about any potential litigation. And did you have one? Somebody there? Okay. Because I'm trying to be conscious of time here.
I guess I just want to make sure. I've just learned about this Goochland situation, which apparently is having a vote on Monday. Do other Western Henrico citizens know that they're going to be within this 10-mile radius? I just feel like it's important for us to make the community aware, so that if we want to band together to contact Goochland, I think that's very important, because I think so many people are not even aware of the situation at this point in time.
So, ideally what would happen, and I guess I would analogize it to when I went out and a couple of my colleagues went out to a board meeting in Goochland prior to, the developer actually we did. We tried to find out who the developer had sent correspondence to, and then we also sent out notices to homes that we felt were kind of in that radius of folks that needed to know about it. My understanding of where they're at now as far as voting is still the planning commission stage, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think that the vote on Monday is the board stage. Okay. Okay. Yes. So candidly, I think part of it is waiting to see how that planning commission meeting goes. I don't have an issue going out again to a Goochland supervisor meeting, and I'm just a regular person giving comments like everybody else that they can either ignore or not ignore. But at that point, I do think that we can look at doing something similar to what we did with the rock quarry situation, which is making sure that we feel like folks who are in a certain range know about the meeting as well.
If I could clarify, our understanding is the meeting is this Thursday at 6:30 at the Goochland High School auditorium, the Planning Commission. So just making sure people have the right information to attend the meeting. So this Thursday at the Goochland High School auditorium at 6:30.
It's still just Planning Commission.
That is still the Planning Commission meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
So there is another meeting, just like here in Henrico, there is another meeting after that. And speaking of meetings, I do want to put out there that we are having a meeting on September the 24th. This was put together by Mr. Rogish and myself. Mr. Rogish is the Tuckahoe supervisor, to address the Three Chopt Road stretch, where unfortunately we had a fatality recently. So that stretch of road where Freeman High School is and Parham, we're having a community meeting at Freeman High School on September the 24th at 6 p.m. It's at Freeman Auditorium because we hope to have a lot of people show up and talk about this important issue. So spread the word about that. Obviously, we're going to be putting information out there as well, but that is specifically to address pedestrian safety and improvements that we have in the works for that stretch of Three Chopt Road that is very dangerous for pedestrians. It is 7:19, so I think we have to wrap up, but please know that this is not the end of the discussion. Ben, what can we do for folks that have additional questions? Or to provide, if you want further answers from Mr. Newby about the legal question.
If you're here, you can talk to me or Beth in the back, and we can get your information. I can also throw the survey QR code back up, which is, several questions, but there's definitely a box there that will get right to us. So.
Okay. Yes.
Can I just make a quick comment? Sure. I know we got to wrap up, but as far as transparency, like Elena said, most of us didn't know about either one of these projects until very recently. And the data center is literally going to be 200 yards from my house. So that's 2 house lanes and then a 6-story, 10 buildings. And it's going to be unlivable with the noise and the pollution and all that. And so I was encouraged to hear that Henrico just passed that law. But I know you have no control over the other counties, but I guess if everyone can reach out to everyone they know, their friends, their neighbors, and just us try to get together and have a big voice of opposition to this, because it will make it difficult to live there.
No, I agree. And just to your point, I found out about the Goochland project via a phone call from the county manager maybe 2 weeks ago. And I found out about the Hanover project because I was actually in New York City to see Hamilton, and I got a voicemail from a reporter asking me for a comment about the Hanover project, and I had no idea what he was talking about. So it's not a situation where our counterparts in other localities are necessarily saying, hey, this is happening and you might want to know about it because it's right on the border there. Unfortunately, that goes back to the regionalism conversation that we're talking about, and maybe we can keep each other abreast on it. So there was no hiding of the ball on that. I was taken as aback by it as everybody else, but definitely going forward, a point is taken that we want to be as responsive in getting information out that we know might impact people, for sure.
Well, you said that you can't pursue, or you won't pursue legal actions, but can you make your voice so loud that they have to listen?
Have you met me?
All of you.
Yes, so absolutely. And again, with the legal action question, I want to be clear. We don't have an official position on legal action. And Ms. Burgess, as a lawyer and as I'm a lawyer, we're trying to be very cautious here because we know how things can take a life of their own. I think the takeaway is that it is unclear as to legal possibilities. That is not, in any event, our first option. But yes, I believe in the power of using social media, of using any public platform that you have, of showing up at meetings, of showing up with facts and information and making everybody's voice heard. So absolutely. Okay, thank you all so much for coming. Please submit any follow-up questions to PR, and we can answer them offline. And hope to see you guys all soon. Thank you.
If you want to